Warning: the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation. Talk radio for the thinking person, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the Savage States of America.
If only they were still the Savage States of America. You know, your grandfather's age. You know, when America defeated Hitler. You know, the Savage States of America. Well, we're not. We are not. We are the demoralized, invaded, and violated America. Sitting here like a beaten housewife, asking all of our enemies, internal and external, not to hit us again. And we all pray to God that Donald Trump wins. And let's say makes America great again. Let's make it real simple for you. And Donald will be on this show in about 30 minutes to take your questions. If we get to them, I doubt it, because I have many of my own. We will only have a few 10, 12 minutes with him. Now, I do news, views, and reviews on this show. I have for years. I don't just do politics. I love politics. We're in an election year. Obviously, it's all that's on most people's minds, one way or the other. Well, there's a lot of news out there and a lot of views out there, particularly mine. And one of the other stories I want to talk about is this Chapo capture. It somewhat ties into Donald Trump. The most notorious drug cartel leader in the world is captured in Mexico by Mexican Marines in a shootout that you have to see. I linked it up on michaelsavage.com. It's, you know, you watch in the movies, or you watch a movie about the last American sniper, and so it's a movie. But this is video footage of a shootout, and you see the Mexican Marines, some in combat gear, some in sportswear. These guys, you know what it's like to be in a shootout? I don't. They do. Heavy-duty machine guns firing into a room. You don't know who's in there. Well, anyway, they caught him, and he's going to be extradited. That's if he ever gets to the extradition point to America. And it's a big story because an American actor known to be a troublemaking anti-American lout of all varieties, the lowest of the low varieties, set up an interview with him. His name is Sean Penn, a grandstander, and did the interview. And, of course, thought that he wasn't being tracked, but apparently the DEA was tracking Sean Penn, who led him right to this notorious drug lord. Well, hey, everyone's saying, what's going to happen now? Well, I have my own opinions as to why nothing will happen to Sean Penn, because I think Sean Penn is as likely a rat for the DEA or CIA as anything else. It's the only explanation for how he got there, how he was protected there, and how he's going to survive this, only to come out as a, let's say, all-around no-goodnik again. Another topic. Another topic in my news, views, and reviews before we get Donald Trump on the show, where I have some great questions. I suggest you text your friends or whatever you do on Facebook or Twitter, however you do it, and tell them to listen to the show in about 25 minutes now. I saw a movie last night called Joy. Now, I don't go to the movies. I watch them on TV. I'm an inveterate, crazy movie watcher. It's one of the ways I relax. And as you know, I live in L.A. part-time, and I have some friends in the movie business. They're never going to be named because they're all conservatives in a city where there is a boycott against anyone who doesn't hate America. I got to tell you, there's a lot of actors and producers and directors down there who actually still love America, but they're living in a Stalinist camp. They're afraid to express their love for America, as are most people in the corporate and academic and governmental worlds. They're living in a Stalinist America under this left-wing fascism where people are afraid to express themselves. Thank God we still have what we call secret ballots in America. Maybe one day we'll be like Kim Jong-il's North Korea, where people won't even be able to have a secret ballot, where you'll have to prove you voted for the party leader. Who knows? So anyway, one of the movies I went to see, because I read the review on Breitbart, was a movie called Joy. It's about a poor Long Island housewife who invents, of all things, a self-wringing mop. Boring, right? Wrong. Well, it starts out slowly. It's somewhat corny. But as the story evolves, it's told about a woman's true grit, her refusal to not take no for an answer, how she overcomes every obstacle a new business owner can ever face, from people who say no to a manufacturer who steals her patents and her molds. And what it is, it's an American success story. Now, I don't recommend you go see it because Jennifer Lawrence is an all-around left-wing fanatic. But I went last night because I knew nobody would be in the theater. I heard it's a bomb. I don't know why. She's a good actress. Robert De Niro plays the father. He does a good job. Everyone in this movie is great because I enjoyed them in the last movie they were in. I love them in American Hustle. I mean, that's why I went. I love the cast in American Hustle. In fact, that's where I heard David Bowie's song, Gene Genie, right? So let's have a little song for David Bowie, in memory of David Bowie. I'm one of those guys who lived through the 60s, and there was always, like, meanings to the lyrics in all of these obscure rock and roll songs, like by the Beatles. I never understood what they were talking about. Everyone knew what they were talking about. They were all stoned out of their mind, and I wasn't. I guess you have to be high to understand the music, but I like the music and don't understand the lyrics. But the movie Joy is something I'm going to talk about because it's the life of Miracle Mop creator Joy Magnano, who is an actual real person, who actually was that personality. And I think it's worth talking about because it shows a woman who invents a product, creates the product, builds the product, sacrifices, raises money from her family. In other words, like a small business person, anyone in America who starts a donut shop or a yogurt shop or whatever it may be, what you have to overcome. And there's no government to help her. There's no crying on anyone's shoulder when things fail. She loses it all and bounces back from the bottom. And that's something I learned when I was a kid growing up, and I'm not boasting about it. I grew up, immigrant son, and the men who made it a little bit of success in America always told us young guys when we were coming up the same story. 12 years old, 13, 14, maybe 14 years old. We'd hang around the toughest guy in the crowd. He owned a bar on the Upper East Side. Believe it or not, all the other men were small merchants. And none of them had even made it into the professional class. None of them were doctors. None of them were lawyers, of the ones I knew. This guy was a tough street kid who owned a bar in Yorktown. Well, he was the one that the boys gravitated to. We used to love to listen to his stories because boys tend to hang around the toughest guys. That's who they like. And he always told us the same story. He told us the same thing. He said, if you get into a fight, don't worry about it. The most you're going to lose is a tooth. But if you run away from a fight, you'll lose your dignity. We didn't even know what he meant, but we kind of got it. No one talks like that anymore. All you could do is lose a tooth. Well, today you can get shot and killed because it's not like that anymore. But number two, he also told us, he said, do you know the richest guys I know? And who knows if they were really rich, but the richest guys I know have all lost their fortunes at some time. But he said, kids, listen to me. They all bounced back. He said, listen to what I'm saying to you. The words are bounced back. Anyone can be knocked down and anyone can stay down, but the winners get up. They bounce back. And that's what I'm trying to tell you about today, because Donald Trump, in many ways, in his motto, Make America Great Again, is trying to tell America, get off the floor. Don't let the liberal wimps keep you down. And it's time for us to bounce back. It's somewhat related. It's an inspirational story. It's all related in my own pastiche, the pastiche in my own mind. News, views, and reviews in the Savage Nation. Phone number is 855-407-282. I don't want to really get into the Golden Globes. I watched this guy, Ricky Gervais, for a while. He's sort of Dean Martin meets Benny Hill. I don't understand why he's considered so funny, but they're good lines. Whoever wrote them for him is they're good writers. And with the glass of beer on the thing with the Golden Globes, very funny. And saying, hello, all of you drug addicts. We all like that. Play clip number 2, Robert. Here is the opening to the Golden Globes event last night from the host, Ricky Gervais.
Shut up, you disgusting, pill-popping, sexual deviant scum. I want to do this monologue and then go into hiding, okay? Not even Sean Penn will find me. Snitch.
Okay, so I don't really know who he is. He's funny. He's got a great delivery. Sort of, as I said, Dean Martin meets Benny Hill. It's an original to the Savage Nation. So we're going to be in a lot of places together today, this Monday, January the 11th, 2016 on the Savage Nation. What would you like me to ask Donald Trump? Because that's all you want to talk about. I have my own questions. I may not even ask your question, but I'll tell you what. Line up outside the door of the Savage Nation. If you could ask Donald Trump a single question, what would it be? The phone number here is 855-400-7282. 855-400-7282. When I come back, I'll tell you what I'm going to ask him, and then we'll wait for his answers right here on the Savage Nation.
Gene Genie lives on his back. The Gene Genie loves chimney stacks. His outrageous screams.
So many things that we're talking about, but we're really waiting for the main act here in the Savage Nation. That's Donald Trump arriving momentarily, stepping off his 757 right into our studios here in the studio of our mind on the Savage Nation. I mean, you know I'm a supporter of Donald. I have been from the beginning. I was for him long before anyone thought he could win. The others made believe that they didn't know him, they didn't like him, they weren't going to support him, they laughed at him. Then all of a sudden, as his poll numbers went up, all of the other so-called conservatives suddenly became Donald Trump supporters, when in fact they were polishing, let us say, Ted Cruz's boots or Rubio's ice cream truck for so many months. And the reason I like Trump is real simple. Rich, yes. Self-made, absolutely. And honest as honest can be. You don't understand this. You think that because a guy is rich, he stole it from someone. That's the opposite of the American ethos. You think because a guy is rich that he's untrustworthy. Well, usually the opposite is true. I found people who've made their own livings are generally more trustworthy than people on the bottom who are desperate. I've always seen that. I'll tell you something funny. When I was a poor school teacher in New York City in the 1960s, I remember that I voted, if I remember correctly, I was a kid. What did I know? I was a liberal. Didn't know anything. They say if you're not a liberal at 20, you have no heart. If you're still liberal at 40, you have no mind, which is 100% true, but I would change it. That if you're not a liberal at 10, you have no heart. And if you're still a liberal at 20, you have no mind, because things have speeded up a little bit. Anyone who's still a liberal at 20 is a moron altogether. What, they want to give away more of their money? What do all these billionaires love liberals for? The answer is they don't pay taxes. You think that Zuckerberg pays his fair share? Do you think that Microsoft pays their fair share? We've gone through this 100 times. The reason they support the liberal regime is because they get away with not paying billions of dollars in taxes by using the triple Irish or quadruple Dutch methodology of foreign holding companies. That's the only reason they support the Obama administration or Hillary, is because they're going to get away with more tax evasion, in my estimation. Many people are social liberals and fiscal conservatives. And by the way, Donald may be a social liberal. I don't really know that much about his social beliefs. But I will take a fiscal conservative over a runaway crazy spender printer of money like Obama, and also take a man who loves the military, which Donald does, over a man who has gutted the military like Barry has done. There's a lot of reasons, okay? Now, news, views, and reviews. I told you we were going to review the movie Joy, which I may not even get to till the next hour, by the way, but I have to review it again for another number of reasons. And then I played a piece from last night's Golden Globes, which I watched for 20 minutes. And this Richie Gervais, okay, he's a British comedian. He thinks he's droll. I get it. And for that reason, he's cool. I get it. But there was something about him I didn't like, and now I'll tell you why you're going to get it. Yes, I said it's Benny Hill meets Dean Martin. But there was something about him that I didn't relate to, no matter how good the lines were. He says he's living with his partner of 32 years, a woman, thank God, named Jane Fallon. That's the good news. But he says they chose not to marry because there's no point in us having an actual ceremony before the eyes of God, because there is no God. Now you know why they love him in Hollywood. Wait, it gets even better. Or have children because, quote, they didn't fancy dedicating 16 years of our lives, and there are too many children, of course, close quote. Put an X through Ricky Gervais, and now understand how you make it in Hollywood, a land where God is dead and children are even more dead. This is the Savage Nation. Let's take a couple of callers on what you want me to ask Donald Trump. I don't think we're going to get to these. I think I'm going to read you the questions. 1, ask Trump about Dem voter fraud. That's from FTL in Florida. JR, Detroit, how do you stand on man-made climate change? From KSFO in San Francisco, what's Trump's strategy on college tuition? From JR, Detroit, ask if Trump realizes how many people look to him as only hope. SBA Radio, how would you get America out of debt? JR, Detroit, would you go after Hillary criminally? It seems we only have WJR as an affiliate because I have 7 calls on a board of 11, but the call screener has to understand that there are other affiliates. Will Trump reach out to Cruz or Carson for a running mate? Well, I'm not going to take any of those callers right now because I've already asked them. 855-400-7282. In fact, I'll give you a preview of the questions that I would like to ask Donald Trump that I'm not going to get around to him. I'm saving the 4 questions that I think he will have time to answer for his actual appearance. So I'll start with number 5, the one I won't get to, which is, will you eliminate the 14th Amendment loophole and eliminate the anchor baby problem in the United States of America? That's birthright citizenship. Will you close the anchor baby loophole in the 14th Amendment in order to eliminate the anchor baby problem that we have in America? That's one I don't think I'm going to get to. Would you consider Ted Cruz as your vice president? May not get to it. Will you eliminate funding for sanctuary cities? May not get to it. But that's just a hint of what I may not get to. I'm not going to tell you what I will get to in exactly 6 minutes when Donald Trump's jet hits the tarmac and he has a chance to take it down that 1.5-mile runway. It is a big plane. Open the doors, come out and give us the interview on the Savage Nation. Here's one call from Detroit. Angelo, fire away. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I was wondering if Donald Trump is going to go after Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama for treason. Another thing is the NSA...
Hold it. Well, let's start. How could you go after Hillary for treason? What did she do that's treasonous?
Yeah, for hoarding classified documents, and which is treasonous. And also...
Well, it's treasonous only if it was sharing the information with a foreign enemy and it harmed America. Let's be clear. I would say, would you go after Hillary Clinton? What could he do? I mean, she failed as a Secretary of State. She created the Arab Spring. She celebrated the death of Gaddafi when he warned us what would happen is happening. She also caused the flood of refugees that's sinking Europe. How much more do you need?
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Welcome to the shadow president of the United States right now, a man who we hope will step out of the shadows come next November when you go into the voting booths and change the course of American history, making America great again. The one, the only, Donald Trump. Donald, welcome to the Savage Nation.
Thank you, Michael. Always an honor.
You know, it's not often enough, as I know you're on the road, you're doing campaign appearances, but my audience is your core. You know that. We've been with you before others jumped in when they saw you might win. I'm going to get right to the main questions that I have for you, Donald, and they're all realistic. And that is this. I know you appeal to African Americans far more so than the polls are saying. Can you tell the audience why you think you appeal to African Americans in particular?
Well, you know, I agree with you 100%. The relationship is incredible. And, you know, one of the polls came out and said I had 25%. That's as a Republican, which would normally have 5 or 6 or maximum 7. And I have 25%. The poll recently came out showing a 25% with African Americans. And one of the announcers said, well, wait a minute. If this is true, that means the election's over. Trump wins automatically. So, great.
Well, that's why I'm asking you the questions about the audiences that we normally don't think would vote for you. On this show, Donald, last week I said the reason Hispanics are going to vote for you, and I'll say it, I'm not going to ask you, is because, to be honest, and it's very clear, the Hispanic culture is a macho culture. Men don't like reporting to a woman. It's just the way the culture is. And they'd rather have a man than a woman as president. What are your poll numbers amongst Hispanics?
Well, we're doing well. In Nevada, we just came in and we were at 34 or something like that. Number one, the state of Nevada, which is very heavily Hispanic. Yes. And you know, I have thousands of people that work for me that are Hispanic, and tens of thousands over the years that have been Hispanic and from Mexico and different places, and they're phenomenal people. And, you know, they frankly, you know, they don't want people coming into the country illegally and taking their jobs, Michael. So
I know.
very well with
and
it.
the same goes for immigrants in general. You are the American dream. They'd rather have you telling them they can still make it here. You know, Donald, I saw a movie last night called Joy about a woman who invented a mop in the 60s. And she was poor and became rich, and how she had to struggle to become rich in America. No governmental help, no grants, no special things for her. She had to overcome every obstacle. People who stole her design, manufacturers who stole her product. This is the American dream, and I think every immigrant still thinks they can make it. That's why they all come here.
Well, I think you're right, and I'm very proud of these numbers that I'm getting out. You probably saw Quinnipiac, which is the big Q poll, or the Quinnipiac poll, just came out like an hour ago in Iowa, that I'm leading now in Iowa. So that means I'm leading every state and every national poll, and some of the states like New Hampshire and South Carolina and Nevada, I'm leading by Georgia, Florida. I'm leading by tremendous margins. So we're doing well. I mean, we're really doing well, and people want to see something happen. I hate to say change, because Obama used to say they want change, and I hate to use that term because of that. I used to listen to him say change, and, at the time people thought it was a good thing. It turned out to be a disaster.
Right. Not all changes for the better. Donald, here's the problem. The system is somewhat rigged against an outsider like you. As wealthy as you are, you're not part of the old boys network inside the Republican headquarters. We all know that, and they've resisted you from day one. What is your strategy if the RNC anoints Cruz and cuts you out at that important juncture? What are you going to do? Care to talk about that?
Well, it's a little bit like a prize fighter. I've held many fights. I know a lot about sports and a lot about prize fighting and all of them. I had 17 Mike Tyson fights, more than anybody else, and I sort of get it. And when a fighter goes into to another fighter's territory, like home territory, and they'll always say, the only way I'm going to win is I got to knock him out. And the way you knock him out is to just win the primaries. If I win the primaries, if I can win in Iowa and win in New Hampshire and win in South Carolina, where I have very big leads, there's nothing anybody can do, frankly. I mean, we'll see. And then you saw the recent poll just came out, Fox, where I'm beating Hillary very substantially. So,
there's no question in my mind. I've said it on the show. I'd go on record right now. If it was head-to-head today, straight out popular election, 75-25 Donald. Hillary is not that popular. She's a product of the government media complex. I don't think she's the problem. I think the problem is the Republican Party standing in your way. What would you do on day one to stop ISIS, Donald? We all know that's the biggest national security issue there is. And we all want it stopped because this cancer has been allowed to grow by the Obama administration. Not only has they've allowed it to grow, I think many of the weapons came from America. How would you stop ISIS?
Well, for one thing, I'd hit them really, really hard. We're not doing that. I don't know if you've heard. I've been saying for years, take the oil, take the oil. I've been saying that for years. Now they just started hitting the oil. I want to take it. I want to keep it. I want to take it and give some to the vets and the families that have been decimated by the deaths of their children and everything else, and the wounded warriors. But we got to take the oil. We're going to stop the banking channels because they have a lot of money pouring into ISIS from our so-called allies, Michael. The allies.
Sure. Yes, all the great bankers over there in Europe are allies. Donald, before you go, have you considered a vice presidential candidate, running mate?
It's really too soon, Michael. I hate to think about it. I have thought about it a little bit, but I hate to think about it until I like to get the deal. I'm a closer. I like to think about getting the deal done. There's plenty of time for that. You'll give me recommendations at the right time. But
I'll put my name in. I'm not a good manager. Donald, let me ask you this, and this is a big one. When you become president, would you eliminate funding for sanctuary cities?
I wouldn't have sanctuary cities, no. I think it's dreadful. You look at San Francisco. Whoever even heard of sanctuary cities until, frankly, when Kate was killed and shot in the back by an illegal immigrant, everyone was hearing for the first time about sanctuary cities, this guy with the sanctuary city. No, that's sanctuary cities. If there's crime, there's crime. They're totally protected with these sanctuary cities. It's like they can do whatever. They're almost like diplomats. They can do whatever they want. No, sanctuary.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. They have diplomatic immunity. Well, it started with Nancy Pelosi. She was one of the greatest boosters of sanctuary city laws because, frankly, the entire Democrat machine lives off the illegal alien vote. Without the illegal alien vote, I don't think they'd be where they are today, Donald. That's why I asked that important question. And here's one related to the anchor baby situation. I'm sorry, to the sanctuary city thing, which is the so-called anchor baby loophole in the 14th Amendment. It's a big deal. Do you think you would have any let's say, luck in closing the anchor baby loophole in the 14th Amendment and stop this flood of people who are coming here just to have a baby?
Michael, I don't think it's luck. I've been talking about the anchor babies. I'm the one that came up with it. I'm the one that started talking about them. Nobody was even talking. First of all, when I announced illegal immigration on June 16th, when I announced I was running for president, when I announced illegal immigration, it was not a big deal. Nobody was thinking about immigration. Now it's become a very important thing for, safety, security, and even for the economy. But then I started talking about the anchor babies, where people come over to have a baby, and now we have to take care of the baby for the next 90 years. It's ridiculous. So they will all say, well, you can't do anything about it if they're born in this land. It's wrong. If somebody comes in and illegally and they have a baby, they are not covered by they don't have to pass a new amendment to take care of that baby. I believe that it will be a vote of Congress. And a lot of the best lawyers, the top lawyers, the real lawyers in the country agree with me. So, and by the way, when I first started that, Michael, nobody agreed with me. Everyone said, oh, no, there's nothing you can do about it. You have to pass a new amendment. It's not right.
Well, it's a big issue, and I think that if there's anyone who has started the debate about immigration, it's you. Obviously, suddenly the world is talking about immigration. Look what Hillary Clinton did to Europe. She opened the floodgates through her crazy Arab Spring policies. Libya's Gaddafi, as bad as he was, said, don't kill me because you're going to have on your hands what we have in Somalia. You'll have warlords running Libya. And look what happened. Now we have a flood of refugees running out of Africa because of what Hillary Clinton did with her Arab Spring. And as a result of it, we are going to get, 10,000, 300,000 Syrians? This is crazy.
Oh, much more than 10,000. They're looking to spring tremendous numbers beyond anything that you can imagine. Look at Germany, rioting in the streets of Germany right now. Women are being raped. They had 200 rapes they reported on New Year's Eve, and everybody's going crazy over there. The German people now are starting to say, what's going on? And they're starting to riot in the streets. What the woman has done is incredible. So
Merkel has invaded her own country. No, it's crazy. It's upside-down liberalism, Donald. It's absolutely true. Now, you're very popular with women, despite the fact that Hillary thinks she's the candidate for women. Isn't that true by every poll?
Yeah, the poll that just came out today actually has to be higher with women than with men, which is great, because that's the first time that's happened. But you know what? I have more respect for women than Hillary Clinton does, and I'm going to take women. I'm going to protect women and men, because number one, it starts at the border. It starts with the military. It starts with protecting, and we don't have the people that know how to do it. We have people that aren't going to protect anybody. They're not strong people, and Hillary doesn't have the strength or the stamina to be president. Let me tell you, Michael, she doesn't have the strength. She'll go to an event, and then you don't see her for a week, and then she goes to another one. And everybody that's interviewed her, everybody that she sees, it's all vetted. It's like these people that ask, what did you have for breakfast this morning, Mrs. Clinton? The whole thing is ridiculous.
Your stamina is pretty amazing. I asked you about it 3 months ago. Do you think you're in it for the long haul? Where do you get the stamina from? And you said right on the Savage Nation, I guess it's my genes. I personally think that it was the air from Alley Pond Park. But, Donald, before you go, and I don't want to take up more of your valuable time, which you can use for seeing bigger crowds in a way all around the country, the capture of Mexico's #1 drug lord is a big deal for you. He threatened you and your family, didn't he?
Well, he did, but I guess, look, he's right now got other difficulties. He did at the time, and I was very much in favor of, you better go get him. But that's okay. I mean, that's a lot of people threaten me. I get threatened. I'm right now, it's very interesting. I'm doing the Tonight Show. Jimmy Fallon tonight, who's a good guy, has been always very nice to me. I'm going over to do his show. And one of the questions they want to ask about is El Chapo. So we'll talk about El Chapo a little bit. But
Donald, truthfully, my suggestion is don't even talk about it. Because, there's one man to the other. It's a national show you're on now with millions of listeners. There's nothing to be gained in poking that situation. And they're just trying to bait you. They're very dangerous, the mainstream media. All they want to do is get the guest in an either gotcha moment or make your life more miserable than you could ever imagine. And you don't need my advice. But trust me on this one, I would stay away from that situation entirely, which now brings us around to the last question, which is the issue of security per se. You are surrounded right now by a phalanx of bodyguards, aren't you?
Well, actually, Secret Service, if you're number one, you get Secret Service. And I have to tell you, they're tremendous people, and they're really dedicated people. They're great. And, you read all different things, and I'm just telling you, I know people. That's what I do for a living, right? It's people. It's not deals. It's people. And they're fantastic men and women, and I have a lot of them. And I will say that they're really dedicated men and women. It's been very nice to watch.
Donald, I won't take up any more of your time. I want to thank you for being on the Savage Nation. I hope to see you back here as soon as possible. Good luck in every one of your campaigns, and I hope to share some Cobb salad with you and meatloaf at Mar-a-Lago.
I love that idea, and we'll see you soon. We'll talk to you soon, Michael. I appreciate your support. You've been so amazing, and I really do. I thank you very much for it.
I'm not asking anything for it. Thank you, Donald Trump. That is it. 47 minutes after the hour, you're listening to the Savage Nation. If you care to join the program by, I guess, commenting, can't ask Mr. Trump any questions. If you get a comment on his appearance, I don't mean what he's wearing or what his hairstyle is. The phone number is 855-400-7282. Back in a moment.
Blue Monday, how are you, Blue Monday? Got to work like a slave all day.
It is the Savage Nation, and I don't want to spend the rest of the show, which is another hour and 10 minutes, talking about the interview with Donald Trump, although it was very exciting. It's always exciting to have a man as important as he is on this program, and we get him once in a while. I don't lean on them. He knows that we're for him, but he's got to reach people who aren't going to vote for him, to be honest with you, and that's why he's on the road all the time. And I'd like to know if you enjoyed the interview. Did I miss anything? What would you have asked him that I didn't ask? Is the real question. I think I did a fairly good job. I didn't ask him puff piece questions. Maybe you say I did. What do you want me to do? Do a setup series like I'm Jimmy Fallon or one of the Ha-Ha boys on NBC? I'm not going to do it. KLIF, Dallas. Rich, thanks for listening. What's on your mind?
Michael, it was a terrific interview with you and Trump. I hope you will continue your fervent support of him. You are a great compliment to him. You tell it like it is. He tells it like it is. He's honest. Really and truly, to be honest with you, there are no other Republican candidates that can touch Trump. And lots of times he gets a hit about, well, he's not specific and not this. People don't realize when Donald Trump gets together and decides to do things, he puts the best of people together and he gets it done right. And
you hit the nail on the head. That's what a good leader does, is he finds people to do the things for him. And I caught one thing he said, and I didn't prompt him. When I said, would you consider Cruz as a running mate? He said, it's too soon. We'll get there once we're there. And he said, I'll ask you. I'll consult with you. Did you hear that part of it?
Yes, I did. And I really question about Cruz. I like Cruz, but there's something there that just frightens me a little bit, Michael. But you know what?
Well, I don't have anything negative to say about Cruz, but I don't support him for one reason. I am a pragmatist. He can't win. Him in a head-to-head with Hillary, it's a loss for the conservative side. Period. End of story. Trump head-to-head with Hillary is a win. It's a 70-30 unless they steal the election. By the way, thanks for finding me across the street on KLIF in Dallas. I guess you know I moved homes down there.
Love that. I used to listen to you in WPAP. But you know, Michael, one last thing.
Well, hold on. How did you find out I moved from BAP to KLIF in Dallas? How did you first hear about the move?
I listen to you every day, and you started to have advertisements. Now, after the first...
All right, good. That's important. That's very important that my BAP audience follows me across the street to KLIF. They're both great stations, by the way, and I'm glad to be in Dallas. It's one of my most important markets because the people and I think the same way, although we don't speak the same way, nor do we look the same way, nor do we have the same accent. It's real strange how this guy, Michael Savage, thinks the way people in Texas do. And I'm proud to say that because I live in California and I have no representation. I had to go to Texas to find a congressman to represent me. And he was on the show last week. Remember what he said he's going to do by cutting the funding off? Well, we'll follow up with Congressman X on the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage. Warning: the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation. Talk radio for the thinking person, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the Savage States of America.
Yep, I'm the president of my own world. It's a virtual world called the radio world, and it's good enough for me. But who's going to be the real president of the United States is the only question we're all asking, because we know what we're facing in this country right now is pretty disastrous as a result of liberalism. You could say it's all a result of Obama. You wouldn't be wrong, because he is the leader of this demoralized, invaded, and violated nation of ours. We know that the liberal media is working around the clock, as someone wrote, putting fairy dust on its childlike delusions, not facing the harsh winds of reality in places like New York, Chicago, San Francisco, and Dallas, in terms of what immigration is doing to these cities. It's not the immigration that we are told it is. It's not your grandfather or father coming here to work hard and to assimilate. You know that, and I know that. Now, this is not to say that so many immigrants don't do the hard work of this country. They do. I walk the streets. I talk the streets. But you're not seeing the underbelly of crime because of the media. And in Europe, the Arab countries, the sub-Saharan African nations are pouring young men into Europe, where the nations have been culturally neutered by insane liberalism. Rapes, pillage, welfare. They're doing just what invading armies do. And the question is, will Donald Trump stop the invasion in the savage nation? Will he stop the hordes coming in here to not become Americans, but, well, shall I say, not do as the Romans do, but make the Romans do as they do? That's the question, because all of us can see the tea leaves, we can read them, and we know what's going on. That's one topic. I will repeat some of the questions I asked Mr. Trump and ask you what you would have asked him had you had the chance. I also want to get to the movie Joy for a couple of reasons with Jennifer Lawrence. And I want to talk a bit about Sean Penn's glorifying the world's biggest drug kingpin and leading the drug kingpin to his capture. It's a very big story in its own way. It shows the insanity of egotism, extreme narcissism, extreme egotism of the type exhibited by Sean Penn has now put him and his family in danger, many believe. Now, that's the question. But in addition to putting himself in danger for inadvertently leading the federales to the world's biggest drug kingpin, it turns out that there's more at stake. I bet you didn't know this, but Manhattan U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara, who's one of the greatest, I wish we had him out here in San Francisco, U.S. Attorney of Manhattan Preet Bharara is leading a federal probe over Sean Penn's ties to El Chapo, and New York prosecutors are seeking a subpoena to search his cell phone, the New York Post is reporting. Others are saying very important things about this. Criminal defense lawyer David Houston says it may be difficult to charge Penn with anything. However, Guzman is responsible for literally the deaths of thousands of Mexicans and for the countless deaths and suffering of U.S. citizens and others around the globe through his command of a significant part of the global drug trade. He was a wanted fugitive, and Sean Penn and Rolling Stone ignore all that in the name of what? To produce a piece of pseudo-journalistic garbage which glamorizes Guzman, airs Guzman's opinions, panders to this murdering, disgusting individual, they write. It's hard to get your head around the naivete and self-righteousness of someone like Sean Penn. Yes, my friends, liberalism is a mental disorder, and there is no greater example of it than the self-aggrandizing, literally crazy Sean Penn. In addition to that, Mexico wants to question the crazy actor over the Chapo meeting. They want to find out what that was about, and they're not releasing any further information. They want to know if he committed a crime. They said, yes, a reporter can interview a drug cartel suspect. But Sean Penn is not a journalist, they say. He's an actor. The U.S. Rock magazine, which is known to publish falsehoods on a regular basis, published an interview over the weekend that the drug kingpin gave to the actor and a girl in an undisclosed jungle clearing in Mexico 3 months before he was recaptured. A Mexican official told AFP that the meeting eventually helped authorities track down the drug lord, age 58, who, as you know, was arrested on Friday in the seaside city of Los Mochis in the northwestern home state of Sinaloa. My friends, liberalism is a mental disorder, and there's no greater example of it than the self-aggrandizing Sean Penn. Was he carrying a chip? Did the CIA or the DEA plant a chip in Sean Penn? Did Sean Penn act as a mole for the CIA or the DEA? People are asking these questions. Listen to me. There's much more to this story than meets the eye, because everyone knows that the cartel is relentless in its ability to reach people anywhere. And if they want you, they're going to get you. So why would Sean Penn have put himself and his family at such great risk unless he knows something that we don't know? Some deal that was made with authorities, let us say, on both sides of the law before he went into that so-called jungle hideout. It's a very crazy story. The phone number is 855-407-2882. I'd like to talk more about these topics, not just the Trump interview, which is over. I don't want to live on the laurels of the last hour in this hour. We'll do a little bit about that, and we will move on. So let's go backwards in order to go forwards. Let's start with WABC Bill. Bill, what'd you think?
Well,
go ahead, please.
Once again, it was another home run by Michael Savage in having Trump on, and Trump, as usual, was his magnificent self. And my support for Trump gets stronger every time I hear him speak.
Yeah, I do too. I think he's better and better. I love the people who keep putting him down, saying he's not specific. How much more specific could he have been when he said he would eliminate sanctuary cities? I mean, he's very specific. They're using the same old arguments that he's too general, he doesn't say specific things. He said a lot of specific things on the show, didn't he?
Yes, he did. And what I like about Trump is that he's done so much with his life. He's accomplished things. You know, for instance, we have a president now who never had a real job in his life. And this guy has done so much with so many people and created so many jobs.
Well, Obama's done an awful lot in his life. He's carried on the traditions of both of his fathers and of the mentors he had who were diehard communists who hated America. And he's done very well by them. He's acted out on all of their principles. He sat in Reverend Wright's church for 20 years where he heard hate America rhetoric and says he didn't hear anything. Well, apparently it fell on fertile ground. He sat there for 20 years. He didn't leave. So everything that Reverend Wright said, like God damn America, apparently the president didn't find offensive. And he's acting out very well on Reverend Wright's advice. Okay. Thanks for the compliments. I appreciate that one. Now, I want to go to some of the callers on the other topics. Listen to this one coming up. This is the issue of El Chapo and Sean Penn, which, by the way, I think is a very big story because there's more to it than meets the eye, and I don't think we should ignore it. If a crazy actor known to be deranged, here's an idiot who went to Iran and told us they're nice people. Remember that? Here's a man who cozied up to the ex-dictator in South America, if you remember that. The man cannot keep away from bad people. And that's to burnish his image of being a really dangerous bad guy, you know, the toughest guy around. The real McCoy, Sean Penn. It's a shame that he isn't the real McCoy. The real McCoy are in the U.S. Army or the U.S. military. Those are the real tough guys, the ones you never hear about. Not guys like this who grandstand every day of their life and do nothing for the betterment of society. Now let's go to the callers and see what you think. WABC George, your opinion on which topic? Go ahead, please.
Listen, if the NSA, right, if somebody knew something about that this guy was going to go out there and do some kind of crazy documentary, the NSA could just home in on his phone number and pretty much know all his whereabouts, and they can home in on him. So it's not really like who's planting this and who's planting that. And one other thing I'd like to say is thank you for changing the shape of our brain. It never goes back to the original shape. I don't know who said that.
No one's ever put that way. I like that. That's pretty good.
Lots of great things like that.
Changing the shape of our brain. I like that. So I've changed the internal geography of your mind, huh?
Oh, Yo, you do that to everybody. Thank you. You are a national treasure. Thank you very much.
All right, I like that. I like being a national treasure. As I said, I want to talk about the woman who created the mop, because I realize what a salesman I could be if I wanted to sell a product. You know, think about that. You know, I thought about that. I said, if I really was out to just get rich, I had so many opportunities when I was younger. I can name 5 of them in a row and show you I didn't invest in certain things because I didn't feel it was right. I'm going to give you a couple examples, and there's an important point to it. You think that I'm doing this show because I'm making something off it. Well, I'm making a good living as a talk show host, but I'm not making the kind of money I could make if I were a salesman. I mean, if I wanted to sell a hedge fund, for example, what if I wanted to work with a hedge fund and I wanted to make, I don't know, $500 million a year? More than that? Could I make $500 million a year? Sure, if I owned the company, I could make that. I could have worked with some big Wall Street people. I didn't, but I'll go back in time. But before I do, it's to tell you for another reason. The reason is this, is that I actually believe what I say. And one of the reasons I get up every morning is because I want to do what I can to save this country from the tailspin it's in. I'd like a new pilot to pull Obama out of the pilot's chair before we hit the ground and pull us up out of the nosedive before it's too late. And I think Donald Trump is the big man who can get in there and pull Obama's hands off the wheel before he crashes the plane forever. You know, I was watching a movie last night called Child 44. I'm not going to give you the whole plot. It was done. It's about the Soviet Union after World War II. And it's about child murders, the rapes of young boys in particular. And how a police guy is trying to find the killer of these young boys. Someone's raping them and killing them. And he's told by his higher-ups in the Soviet Union that they cannot report that the children are being killed by a murderer because Joseph Stalin had an edict that homicide can only occur in a capitalist nation. It could not occur in the paradise of the Soviet Union. I listened to what I just said to you. And the whole plot is about the mind control of a left-wing totalitarian society. A road that we are long down. If you look at the evil people in the media who try to control your thoughts, who never report what a perp looks like unless it meets the protocols of the controllers of the media. If you look at your government, when last week a devout Muslim shot a policeman many times, and the mayor of Philadelphia got up and said, he's not a Muslim, it has nothing to do with Islam. This is after the chief of homicide detectives said the man did it in the name of Islam. He did it for ISIS. We are on the road, not to perdition, but to actual death. I have studied the devolution of societies, and I am telling you under liberalism, we have gone a long way towards absolute and total fascism. And that's why I don't sell mutual funds. I'll be back.
Gene Genie lives on his back. The Gene Genie loves chimney stacks. His outrageous screams and he balls.
It is 25 minutes after the hour. You're listening to the Savage Nation. My good friend Joseph Farah, who runs WorldNet Daily, with whom I partner for MichaelSavage.com, and I've known Joseph for a long time, tried to get through. I didn't give him the back phone number. I didn't even know he was calling, but he would have asked Donald Trump the following questions. What are you going to do to make America great again? Will you keep borrowing money to run the government? Or will you announce the day you take office, no more borrowing? Start planning the cuts? He then said you had a terrible hit piece done on you by Esquire magazine. Will you take the advice of my friend Joseph Farah and buy Esquire and maybe other problematic media outlets? It's a very funny question. He ought to buy the New York Times. That's what he ought to do. All right, the phone number is 855-407-282. If you missed the Donald Trump interview, it is now up on MichaelSavage.com any moment anyway for your listening pleasure. We're also talking about the madness of Sean Penn and the interview that led to the capture of the world's most notorious drug kingpin. And I think it's a very important story because no one does a thing like this unless they're crazy or they know something we don't know. I mean, let's say he didn't mean to see the guy get captured. He could say that. But it doesn't matter what he meant to do. All we know is that he was tracked. The drug kingpin was tracked through Sean Penn and the actress. That's all that matters. That's how they see it. And so he's put himself and his family in grave danger. Not only that, as I said, New York State, U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara is leading a federal probe over Penn's ties. The Mexican government is looking at him. What is he trying to achieve here? Is he that desperate for attention that he would put himself at risk like this? This is an example of when I say to you, liberalism is a mental disorder. There's no greater example than this. This is a story that's worth talking about. But we could also talk about Trump, and I didn't get to the other stuff I want to talk. I have so many things I want to do at once. They're all getting in my way, to be honest with you. But, there's only so much you can do at any 1 minute on a show. And I don't know which one that you want me to talk about. So if you want to drive the show, we've got one open line at 855-400-7282. Let's go right here in San Francisco. Garrett, KSFO, go ahead, please. What's your concern?
Yes, I'm a Trump supporter, and I have one major reservation that a lot of other true conservatives might have, and that's that Trump, aside from being a friend of the Clintons in the past, has some very liberal policies in the past, or liberal viewpoints, especially on health care and other things. I'm wondering how concerned real conservatives should be about that.
Well, you keep using a loaded phrase of real conservatives as though you spoke to the Pope of conservatism, who determines what is a real conservative?
Well, to me, I don't believe the Republican Party is conservative anymore.
We know that's a given, but what's a real conservative? What's the litmus test?
Well, I guess one issue would be the issue of health care. I don't believe that conservatives generally would support something like a single-payer health care system. Okay, here's what it comes down to. Borders, language, culture. He passes my litmus test. That's all. If you want to go listen to the Pope of conservatism, go ahead. Because you'll wind up with nothing. You'll have 2 Dixie cups and a string.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282.
Listen, if you do win tonight, remember that no one cares about that award as much as you do, okay? Don't get emotional. It's embarrassing, okay? That award is, no offence, worthless. It's a bit of metal that some nice old confused journalists wanted to give you in person so they could meet you and have a selfie with you. Okay? That's all it is.
He's about right about that. I guess Sean Penn doesn't recognize that, but here we are. So we can talk about more serious things than Hollywood. As you know, many of them are very nice people, but naive, as the word naive is, you cannot believe it. You have to understand, I have no anger or hatred for them. Yes, the studio heads are the bad ones, the ones who choose to make the anti-American, anti-family, anti-church, anti-everything you believe in movies. But the people in the film industry are generally naive people. They went to acting school. Some of them did go to college where they were brainwashed. Very few of them actually escaped the brainwashing. And they come out as perfect Soviet citizens. The Soviet world of Hollywood, the Hollywood Soviet system. They're perfect government actors and actresses. And I want to get back to a movie I talked about last night. I saw last night called, I think, Child 44. Again, it starts in World War II where a kid is found in the forest by a group of Russian soldiers. They adopt him. They give him a nickname, Leo, I think. He grows up and becomes a Soviet soldier where he distinguishes himself, fighting in some of the worst battles of World War II, including the taking of Berlin. And people are killed all around him. And then after the war, he establishes himself within the Soviet system and becomes an important policeman in the government. And then they find dead children on the railroad tracks who are being raped. Boys are being raped by a predatory homosexual rapist. And the fact is that when he tries to investigate the killers, he's told by his superior he cannot do it because, according to Joseph Stalin, homicide is not possible in paradise. It is only possible in a capitalist nation. Now, why am I telling you this story? Because it's what we're living through right now. We're living through a time where you're told what to think despite what you actually see going on. So last week, for example, and Robert, get the sound ready, a homicide detective comes out after a cop is shot in Philly and says one thing, and then the mayor of Philadelphia comes out like the good Soviet citizen he is and says quite another. This is exactly what went on in the Soviet Union. Robert, play the homicide detective first, please, from Philadelphia.
We had the suspect upstairs. The homicide unit talked to him. Right away, he didn't have anything to say, but then he stated that he pledges his allegiance to Islamic State. He follows Allah, and that is the reason he was called upon to do this.
All right, that's a homicide detective about the shooter of a cop, walked up to the police car and shot through the window. Luckily, the cop survived that many shots. Now comes the mayor out of the Soviet, the left-wing Soviet system that's emerged in America under Nancy Pelosi's gavel. Listen.
In no way, shape, or form does anyone in this room believe that Islam or the teaching of Islam has anything to do with what you've seen on that screen. That is abhorrent. It's terrible, and it does not represent the religion in any way, shape, or form or any of its teachings. This is a criminal with a stolen gun who tried to kill one of our officers. Has nothing to do with being a Muslim or following the Islamic faith.
Now, after the illegal alien in San Francisco shot Kate Steinle with a gun that was found, apparently from a federal agent who lost it. I don't know why the federal agent hasn't been imprisoned for losing her gun, for example. But, okay, we'll put that aside. Losing a gun, you're a federal agent and your gun is stolen? To me, you go to jail for that if I ran things. You're that sloppy and you're a federal agent? Anyway, you're not allowed to say he was an illegal alien in the Soviet city of San Francisco under Commissar Pelosi. Commissar Pelosi said immigrants have nothing to do with crime. Commissar Pelosi and the little men in the press here in San Francisco in the media, the little tiny men, the Lilliputians in the San Francisco media, the Lilliputians said that he was not even an immigrant. It was by accident. He was shooting seals, harbor seals, and accidentally the gun went off. This is again what went on in the Soviet Union. So if you think that it's fiction for me to tell you that we are already on the road to a Soviet America, you wouldn't understand history. And that's why I support Trump, number one, because I think if anyone could turn it around, it's him. And that's if anyone could turn it around. It's a big if. And number two, it's why I get up in the morning and do my show. I believe we all have to speak out. I believe we all have to take risks. I believe we all have to risk our jobs, our careers. We have to talk out wherever we are against this creeping psychosis of the Soviet system that we're living in. Truthfully, that's what I'm trying to tell you. And without going into details, maybe I'll give you a little outline. When I said to you, you know with my salesmanship what I could be doing if I wanted to just make money. If I just wanted to make money, I would have done so a long time ago. I'll give you a few examples. I'll go back as far as I can. Let me think carefully. When I was in the Fiji Islands collecting medicinal plants at great cost to my young family on my own money because I couldn't get anyone to fund ethnobotany at the time, I had opportunities to import various things and make a fortune. Take a look at Fiji water. Where do you think it comes from? Ginger. I was approached to import ginger from Fiji and become a broker of Fijian ginger. I'm giving you an example. I didn't want to do it because I was there doing something I thought was more important. When I visited Israel many, many years ago, it's over 20 years now, I had the opportunity to buy real estate in a town up in the Golan, near the Golan, called Sfat. The artists lived there. The religious lived there. Houses were for $12,000 or $15,000. They were gorgeous. And I was told that this area was going to boom. I said, you know, you're right. And I went home and thought about it. I said, I don't really want to capitalize on the Holy Land. Maybe I'm a fool. Once I was in Hawaii as a young graduate student, and I was walking in a creek looking for a certain plant. And I came upon a petroglyph in the water. I picked it up in the clear streams, and I looked at it. I knew what a petroglyph was, and I knew it was part of the traditions, the heritage of Hawaii. I placed the petroglyph right back in the water where I found it. What I'm trying to say to you is that there's different types of people on the earth. And it doesn't mean that you're bad if you want to make a lot of money, but it doesn't mean that you're stupid if you don't. Do you get what I'm saying to you? It's very important you understand that. And then it's very easy in the cynical age to believe everyone who you listen to, who is a public figure as I am, is fooling you in some way. Many of you are cynics and you don't trust anyone or anything. I get it. You think everyone's a phony. You think everyone's doing something wrong. You think everyone's this, everyone's that. You're one of the PJ media that sit out there, put everyone down. You go on everyone's Facebook page and try to put them down. You try to call radio shows and knock people. But you're wrong. There are people who believe in what they're saying. There are people who know what's going on. There are people who are trying to save the sinking ship. End the story. I wanted to tell you about that. It's that simple. Let's go to MAL in Washington, D.C. Paul, what line are we on here? Line 5. Go ahead. What's your topic?
I just want the Supreme Court has ruled on this anchor baby thing twice in history, and I'm really frustrated that it seems that the rule of law is just ignored. Trump was right in what he was saying. He may not enunciate it well as he could, but the case law is there. There's 2 cases, went before the Supreme Court. Both of them ruled that being born on our soil doesn't necessarily guarantee you citizenship.
That's right. And by the way, the United States is the only industrialized country to give blanket birthright citizenship to all children of illegal aliens. The only one. And there's certainly an open issue on the issue of the 14th Amendment. I agree with you on that. And I guess there's nothing more to say other than, Paul, let me send you a copy of Government Zero where I discuss it all in Zero Immigration. Because this is something that needs to be challenged. When Donald Trump becomes president, he must challenge this issue of the so-called anchor babies. And I want to tell you a side story about it if you think we're bad guys by talking about it. And I've told you the story before, but perhaps you never listened before. I am the son of an immigrant, which is a very important statement to begin with. But secondly, and going beyond myself, Canada. Canada has no anchor baby law. Do you know why? Because a Canadian of Chinese ancestry, Chinese-Canadian, a minister, noticed something happening. He saw mainland Chinese coming in from China in their 9th month of pregnancy and delivering their babies in Canada in order to get an anchor baby in Canada. The Chinese-Canadian said, we must stop this or the entire nation will become a province of China. They eliminated the anchor baby law. That's liberal Canada. Not racism, but realism. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? You can't use your knee-jerk answers to everything that comes up. Sometimes you actually have to T-H-I-N-K. You have to actually T-H-I-N-K. Many of you don't think. Knee-jerk liberalism. Knee-jerk liberals. Automatically you're a racist because you think about saving your own nation. There's a soundbite that I have to play right now, Robert. No better example of this kind of groupthink that I'm trying to alert you to than Colonel Sanders' son, Bernie Sanders, in clip 14. Go ahead, please.
If people are concerned about electability, and Democrats should be very concerned, because we certainly do not want to see some right-wing extremist in the White House, I think Bernie Sanders is the candidate. We're doing much better with
right-wing extremist. Bernie Sanders is a fanatical left-wing extremist. Don't you love how they changed the entire language? Bernie Sanders is an extreme left-wing extremist. Hillary Clinton is a left-wing extremist. Barack Obama is a left-wing extremist. Nancy Pelosi is a left-wing extremist. The entire Democrat Party is filled with left-wing extremism. So anyone who stands up for America is now called a right-wing extremist in order to put out paranoia in whose head? No, I don't buy it, not at all. It's Bernie Sanders who is the extremist. Anyone who stands against our borders, against our language, and against our culture is not only a left-wing extremist. As far as I'm concerned, they're committing sedition. That's what I would say. I go a little further. FTL, Fort Lauderdale. Joe, you're up on the Savage Nation.
Savage, I've listened to Donald Trump's, all his appearances on your show. When he signs off and says, I appreciate your support, there's more there than meets the eye. He really has read your books. And I'll go so far as to say he's listened to your show for years. He gets it, borders, language, culture. There's more to... He could listen to anybody. In his debates, he's quoting bullet points that you have said for years. He better not pick Ted Cruz. Big mistake for VP. Not that he would take it. I think he's too much of an egomaniac, Mr. Cruz. But he better pick someone with a little more of an ethnicity bent, if you know what I mean.
No, I understand. You have a good point there because he has to appeal to a wider audience than his own base, and that's normally what people do with a VP candidate. And God knows how many opportunities there are out there for an ethnic woman war hero, for example. I mean, I'll come up with some names that no one's ever thought about. We happen to have some conservative ethnic minorities who were swept into office not too long ago, but no one hears of them because they were put at the back of the bus by the old Republican Party. I'll give you an example. There's a wonderful young lady in Salt Lake City. No one knows her name. She's an African American. She is super conservative. There's a wonderful woman in Florida, an Iraq war veteran. No one knows her name. They put her at the back of the Republican bus. They would make superb candidates, but we haven't heard from them, have we?
No, and
No.
He needs to be a little creative and don't pick the obvious. Cruz is the bad choice, but get down here to Florida. I want to take you out for a beer.
Okay, thanks for that call. I don't drink beer in the winter. I have different alcoholic tastes according to the time of the year. Right now, I'm not drinking anything. I'm on a diet. Oh, God, I started a new diet. Don't talk about that. My New Year's resolution, everything I love is either illegal, immoral, or fattening. Remember that sign from the 50s? I remember, the men in my father's generation had little tiny basements in their houses, and they had little bars, some of them. I wish we did. We didn't. Ours was an unfinished basement. But those who had a finished basement often put little bars in it and had little bar signs. And one of them was, everything I love is either illegal, immoral, or fattening. I never even understood it when I was a kid. Unfortunately, I understand it well right now. Back in a minute.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
The politicians can pretend it's something else, but Donald Trump calls it radical Islamic terrorism. That's why he's calling for a temporary shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until we can figure out what's going on. He'll quickly cut the head off ISIS and take their oil. And he'll stop illegal immigration by building a wall on our southern border that Mexico will pay for.
We will make America great again.
Very nice. Very, very nice. Now, tomorrow, the con man in the White House gives his State of the Union address, which I cannot watch. I don't mind listening to it, but I can't take the fake every second, the applause. We have a nation of dumbbells. Let him say his speech, then applaud. Every second, if he belches, that every schmendrick stands up. Every 2 minutes, they're standing and sitting and standing and sitting. And then the walking in, it's crazy. The patting and the shaking. I don't, it's stupid. It makes me embarrassed to be an American to see it. And didn't start with him. Why don't we grow up already as a nation? Let's have a parliamentary debate between the president and someone who really can debate him without notes in front of them. Then maybe we'd have a chance as a country. But anyway, I'm not going to watch it. I'll play a little bit of it because you know already what he's going to do. And then Thursday, another debate now. This one's going to be where, Robert? Another Republican debate? I'm sorry, I wouldn't even go. If I were the Republicans, I'd stop appearing. Every time they debate, they open themselves up to more attacks by the Soviets in the media. Where's Hillary in the debate? How about letting her debate somebody who could really take her on? About the missing emails, about the Arab Spring, about the flood of refugees. Is she embarrassed by what she's done to Europe? No, not one word. That's all. So that's why we have to keep our eyes open. I wouldn't go if I were him. Well, I know many of you leave the show right now. A couple of markets leave, a couple of markets join. I have another big hour here on the Savage Nation. We'll continue to talk about news, views, and reviews. And if you missed the Donald Trump interview today, it could be listened to anytime on michaelsavage.com. Be here or be nowhere.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation. Talk radio for the thinking person, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
Shut up.
You disgusting, pill-popping, sexual deviant scum. I want to do this monologue and then go into hiding, okay? Not even Sean Penn will find me. Snitch.
Yeah, right. Ricky Gervais, British comedian, cross between Benny Hill and Dean Martin, I guess. Atheist, anti-family guy. You could see how he got where he is. I mean, he fits right in with Hollywood. But, okay, put that aside. Some of his humor was funny, especially when he attacked them because no one else would dare do it. He did a joke on, I'm doing news, views, and reviews. We had Donald Trump on. If you missed it, it's on michaelsavage.com. And I'll cover all the news of the day, believe me, including the New York Times just came out saying Germany should close the borders, conduct mass deportations, and Merkel must resign. I can't believe this. Now, I don't know who wrote the op-ed, but they're right, 100%. Here's another one. You want some more breaking news from the Independent UK? The terror group ISIS has released an English language manual telling terrorists how to avoid security services. They said wear aftershave, trim your beards, and wear Christian crosses while plotting new Paris-style attacks. Thank you, liberals. Bring in 1 million of them. So let's say 10,000 of them will have trim beards and be wearing a cross. Sorry, something in my throat. I want to play another one from last night against the church about a movie. I don't know the name of it. Play it, Robert.
So what's happened this last year in this crazy business we called show? The excellent Spotlight has been nominated. Yeah. The Catholic Church are furious about the film as it exposes the fact that 5% of all their priests have repeatedly molested children and been allowed to continue to work without punishment. Roman Polanski called it the best date movie ever.
Right up their alley. That works for Harvey Weinstein crowd. I'm sure Larry David couldn't stop laughing. I'm sure Larry David choked on his drink at that one. I mean, anything that attacks the church is right up their alley. Yeah, real good jokes. Anyway, here we are, news, views, and reviews. I didn't get to the movie I wanted to talk about, Joy, with Jennifer Lawrence. I don't know what I did with the paperwork on it. It's worth talking about. So let's play the trailer for Joy. And by the way, I recommend you do not see it because she's such a big leftist. I'd rather you not go. I mean, thank God the movie is bombing, but it's a good movie. Let's listen to the trailer to Joy.
I want you to remember something because a lot of times people get nice things and they start to think differently. We got here from hard work, patience, and humility. So I want to tell you, don't ever think that the world owes you anything, because it doesn't. The world doesn't owe you a thing. I was valedictorian in high school. I got into a fancy college.
The trailer's no good. It's about a poor Long Island housewife, a real story. Miracle Mop creator Joy Magano. And it's by a film team that I came to really love in American Hustle. Director David O. Russell, and the actress is Jennifer Lawrence. There are other fabulous actors in the movie. Robert De Niro is in it. Virginia Madsen is in it. People you may not know are in it, but they're really good. And the important part of the movie is that it's about a poor woman who overcomes great obstacles to survive as a new businesswoman. True grit, refusal never to take no for an answer, overcoming every obstacle that any new business owner would ever face, from people who say no to you and to manufacturers who steal your patent. It's really worth seeing for anyone trying to start a business so you know what kind of risks are involved. I mean, many people look at people who are rich and say they don't deserve it or they stole it or, they know somebody. Well, no, that's not how it works. Usually it's from fighting every day of your life, and after you get where you are, continuing to fight every day of your life. It's as simple as that. That's the hardscrabble system of capitalism, and frankly, it's glorified in the movie Joy. Teddy loved it very much. 855-400-7282. Now let's go right to the callers on the Savage Nation. Stephen on WJR is not a fan of Donald Trump. Stephen, go ahead, please.
Hi, I just wanted to challenge the notion that Trump is a conservative, first of all. I know he's running on the Republican ticket, but as a constitutional conservative myself, I just look at at least what he says his ideology is, and I really don't see much overlap between his and my own.
All right, what part of Donald Trump don't you like?
I don't like the rhetoric that he'll just do anything to get done what needs to get done. A lot of what he thinks needs to get done, I actually agree with. I just don't like the idea that the checks and balances that are part of our great nation, it just sounds like he'd be willing to just trample right over it just to get done what, frankly...
Well, here's our problem. Obama has trampled on our checks and balances and taken us where we are, hasn't he?
No, I agree, yes.
So why shouldn't we use the same system to reverse the course we are on in an emergency situation in order to right the ship?
Well, I guess my answer would be two wrongs don't make a right. I mean, I agree.
No, I understand that, but we're not dealing with an idea anymore. It's not a theory. This is a country in grave danger. We're heading towards an iceberg. And unless someone reverses course rapidly, we're going to hit that iceberg. And whether he has to go through the niceties that you are referring to is a question that's worthy of debate. And I would say that the constitutional system has been hijacked by Obama and the Soviets who have ruined America. How would you do it? If you turn it back to Congress, how long would it take to do anything? How long would it take for Trump to do anything if he wanted to go down the line of doing it 100% the way you want it done?
It wouldn't be quick, that's for sure. I mean, his term will be 4 years.
All right, so this is the problem with being a purist. And this is the problem with listening to purists. Purists live in a dream world. And that's why purists usually get run over and become roadkill, is because the folks on the other side of the aisle don't live in a dream world. They're very vicious, they're ruthless, and they will run you over and destroy you. And that's what I'm trying to tell you, is that we happen to need a buccaneer to save America. Donald Trump meets the bill for me. I know maybe you don't want to hear it because it doesn't meet the protocols of the Pope of conservatism, whoever that may be. How can you sit and hold people up to some storybook ideal of what a conservative should be when we're living in a state of America that's in great decline? So that's my answer. I hope that you don't go away mad, but that you continue to listen to the show. 855-407-282 is the phone number. I invite you to call. That's one open line. Let's go to Washington, D.C. Diane on WMAL. What's your question or comment? Go ahead, please.
Dr. Savage, thank you. I want to speak on behalf of the liberalism as a mental disorder, and a person that came to mind was George Soros with respect to the hedge fund, being a hedge fund manager and using our capitalist society to destroy our nation, versus someone like you who's devoted to being an honorable, and I don't mean to embarrass you by saying so, but I'm being honest about it, a talk show host who has a certain degree of nobility, wants to save our nation, and we're in great peril. And it doesn't matter how conservative people are or think they are, we're in deep trouble, and we need someone like Donald Trump. So thank you.
Yes, we do.
Every day.
Thank you for calling. Look, I'm not going to say I don't appreciate what you said. I do. But the thing is, we're in desperate shape in the country because the Stalinist left has gone around the checks and balances that we all hold so dear. How do you right a ship that's heading straight at the iceberg unless you grab the wheel without asking permission? I guess that's what I'm saying. If you see an insane captain on the bridge of a ship and he's heading right to an iceberg, do you ask his permission to take control of the wheel once you can? Or do you knock him out of the way and grab the wheel and turn the ship in the right direction before all is lost? Back in a minute. Drug, sex, and rock and roll worked very well for him. Yeah, sitting and watching the world go round. New poll coming out tomorrow will be showing Clinton in deep trouble in New Hampshire. Deep trouble in New Hampshire against old Colonel Sanders' long-lost brother, Bernie. Now, although Colonel Sanders comes from a different background than Bernie Sanders, and although Colonel Sanders provides and did provide a very useful product, while his long-lost cousin Bernie provides nothing but hot air, Sanders has a significant lead over Hillary Clinton, which shows you that the entire Democrat machine is in trouble. I mean, if Sanders is leading Hillary, it just shows you what the whole Democrat story is about. Everyone knows that they're not the majority of opinion. Everyone knows that. It's this cabal, the Soviet government media complex that I've been warning you about, that leads you to believe things that are false. They love Hillary? No one loves Hillary. She has a disastrous following, except amongst a very small coterie of followers. The media's in love with her, and they're in love with the commie, Bernie. And I wish to God that Bernie wins the primaries, because there's no question in my mind in a head-to-head debate, Trump wipes the floor with Sanders. It's that simple. And if there was a popular vote, it's 75-78 for Trump to the commie. Because America doesn't want to go to the Soviet Union. We've been there and come back from the brink. And most immigrants want to make a living. Most immigrants dream of the American dream. Bernie Sanders offers the opposite. Bernie Sanders offers the Soviet dream of the government running and ruining your life. Donald Trump is the opposite. And I think that most immigrants want to make it in America. And tell you, I know what I think. I know what they want. They want to buy a house. They want to own a nice pickup truck. They want to send their kids to a school where they won't get beaten up or killed on the way or to or from school. They want law and order. And Bernie Sanders is the opposite of that. It's that simple. I mean, I don't need anyone to tell me what's real. And as far as immigration goes, everybody wants it stopped dead in its tracks. Everyone. Everyone wants the doors slammed shut because they see what's going on with the revolution in Europe right now. And they understand that they don't want the rapes, the kidnappings, the murders that are being conducted on a too regular basis in Europe. As far as Muslims, well, it's a tough one, but the fact of the matter is, there's a big question mark over the immigration situation with regard to Islam. It's a little up in the air as to what all of them come here to simply practice their religion. Let's put it to you that way. We know it's not true. We know that the good percentage, even if it's 1%, let's say a small, tiny percentage, a very tiny percentage of 1 billion Muslims or 1% of 1 billion, do the math. That's a big number. Don't practice Islam the way we're told that they should. They practice a rather primitive view of Islam, which calls for the conversion or killing of the infidel. How do I know it? Wake up. Wake up and smell the gunite. And I don't mean the gunite in the pools. Wake up and smell the gunite as the pools fly in the air from the C4 explosive. You get what I'm saying. Let's not be children about this. This is life and death. Even liberal Paris, liberal France, that is, even the socialist who runs France, for God's sakes, as left-wing as they come, even he had the police break down the doors of mosques. Even he is deporting the radical imams. Even he understands that there's a limit to their good nature. So how can a liberal not understand that things have changed and they can't stick to their doxies forever? And that's what I'm trying to tell you. The left-wing revolution has destroyed the fabric of American society. And maybe people who were sexually promiscuous felt that that was necessary in order to do it in the road. See, a lot of this came from the sexual movement, the sexual liberation movement of the 60s, because that's where it started. And I've talked about it. You don't have to be a genius to understand where this flowed from and where it came from, and the paranoia that the rigid church, the rigid Christians, the rigid marriage is what would keep people from enjoying themselves, and that conservatives were seen sort of as the cop between hedonism and repression, in plain English. And anyone who is seen as a conservative now to Hollywood and the media is considered someone who represses your sexual freedom. Let's put it all in a sexual context, because this all began with the sexual revolution. And we were warned that the way the communists would break down the walls of our society would be through the sexual revolution. Now move it forward 40 to 50 years. And look where the sexual revolution has led. Is it not time to think about it more carefully? That not all things are equal? and not all things should revolve around your hedonistic impulses? That sometimes, let us say, controlling yourself is more important than expressing yourself in certain areas? And that by controlling yourself, you might just control the society for the better? Is it possible to consider that unlimited freedom is suicide, just as unlimited repression is suicide? I mean, I talked earlier about the Soviet system. That's unlimited repression, right? We're all against unlimited repression. That's Stalin's Soviet Union, unlimited repression. Well, the opposite of that is America today, with unlimited sexual freedom. They're both equally damaging to the social order, and we need someone to strike the balance. And that's all I have to say on this subject. I don't want to get into the details of what I mean by that. I figure you can figure it out for yourself. When I come back, live right on the Savage Nation for your calls and comments, we have great callers. We have 2 open lines at 855-400-7282. If you care to talk about the Trump interview or what I just said about the sexual revolution, we're open for business on the Savage Nation. I still haven't gotten to the other stuff that I wanted to get to, some of the great sound. Tomorrow, of course, it's the State of the Union address, which I cannot tolerate. I hope it's not during the show. The applause and the this and the that, I don't want to really listen to it. He's going to have an empty chair for a Syrian refugee. You hear this? You talk about a charade. This is a charade within a charade.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE. Savage.
Put on your red shoes and dance the blues. Dance to the song they're playing.
It is the Savage Nation. So in my last monologue, I talked about sexual liberation leading to the state we're in the society, not related directly to the sexual liberation, but how sexual liberation led to the relaxing of virtually all laws and rules in the society that have led us to the sad state where we are literally a broken society. So I'm not saying let's go back to the 50s or something like that, but come to understand that there are facts related to behavior in a society. And there's a new finding from the CDC, which is instead of protecting us from diseases, is publishing such rubbish as this. American sex lives, women more likely to have same-sex experience, according to the CDC. This is what they're interested in. Sex with the opposite sex clearly dominates, but that's not the entire story we read, since even many identifying as homosexual also have had opposite sex, whatever that means. And so ask yourself why, with an interview of roughly 10,000 people ages 18 to 44, you see the numbers showing a great increase in human sexuality of woman to woman. Is that the mark of a healthier society, do you think? Is that the direction a society that is going to thrive would be going? I don't think so. Dare I say I pretty much know so? Dare I say the birth rate would indicate I am correct? Now, there's a soundbite from last night's Golden Globes that kind of says it all. We didn't get the soundbite on the children part of it. I read it, actually, where this guy, Ricky Gervais, was selected for a number of reasons, one of which is that he said he didn't think he should get married and make allegiance to an invisible God. He said that because he doesn't exist. Then he said, we decided, my partner and I, not to have children after so many years together because we didn't want to devote 16 years of our lives to taking care of them. This is the nihilism I'm talking about that makes Hollywood run. And this is why the movies that they make are generally antithetical to the nature of a society that wants to survive. Now, if that's too judgmental for you, I apologize in advance. Women are almost 3 times as likely to report same-sex intimacy as men. Interesting. Why is that happening in our society today? I'll let you think about that. What does it have to do with the breakdown of our borders, language, and culture? I'll let you think about that. How could the Centers for Disease Control study a thing like this? This is something for Oprah, not the CDC. But this is an example of the meltdown of our science as well, the meltdown of medicine in America. And I want to go back again to where this is all coming from and where it is where it is leading us. But at the risk of boring you, I won't do so. Let me instead go to some of the other sound that the guys who do this stuff for me put together. And I want to get away from the Golden Globes. Oh, here it is. Matt Damon, who is perhaps the most overrated actor in American history, one of the most crazed leftists in the history of Hollywood, amongst crazed leftists, in clip number 11.
It's nothing new, actors going and seeking out meetings like this. I don't want to throw any other actors under the bus, but I know a lot of very, very serious actors and filmmakers who've been having meetings like this forever, and writers for that matter, who take meetings like this, and it's part of, what we do to do our job really well.
What a moron. He looks as stupid as he sounds. He's talking about Sean Penn meeting with the number one drug lord on the earth and saying there's nothing bad about it and it's what we do, to do our job really well. Yeah, to do our job really well of what, demoralizing and destroying a society? You're doing really well at that, Matt, the most overrated child star in history. Okay, my friends, callers. Jim, WABC, what's your topic, Jim? Go ahead, please.
Yes, good evening, Michael. One thing I wanted to say is you would probably make a good running mate with Donald Trump as a VP. You should consider that.
Well, hold it. Let's talk about that. It would have been easy for me to play a joker today and say to Mr. Trump, would you consider me as VP? I didn't do it for two reasons. One, because it would destroy his candidacy, and two, because I wouldn't make a good VP because I'm not an administrator. I'm not really a good administrator. I don't have the head for it. You really have to know how to run a large organization to do it well, I mean, just because you have good ideas doesn't mean you can translate them into action. On the other hand, some people can translate very bad ideas into action. Look at Obama. So I appreciate that, but could you imagine the headlines if I had cornered Donald Trump, who was gracious enough to come on my show live, and I said, would you consider me to be VP? And he fell into that because he was tired and said, yes, I would. What do you think the media would do with that one?
Michael, I would like to, I agree with a lot of that, what Donald is saying, but I don't really believe that he will carry through with what he's saying. And I'll tell you, I'll make a prediction on your radio show today that I believe that Obama and company are waiting to see if he's going to win Iowa in the primaries. And if he comes out the winner, I believe you're going to start seeing, some kind of stuff, hanky-panky going on from underneath, like a DOJ investigation. You know how it is. They'll pull the rug from underneath and have him derail his campaign and just pull out.
Well, yes, the Soviets definitely stop at nothing to defeat their enemies. That's the way it was done under good old Uncle Joseph Stalin, and it's the good way it's done by his grandson, Barry from Honolulu. No, I expect terrible things to happen. When Donald becomes more likely the candidate, you're going to see some of the worst behavior known to American politicians. It will mimic that, if not exceed that, of one of the South American banana republics. I have very strong feelings about what happened to the young Kennedy, who was supposed to inherit the seat that Hillary Clinton appeared as a carpetbagger to take. Do you remember that story?
Yeah.
Does anyone remember how the young Kennedy was absolutely being groomed for that guaranteed liberal Senate seat in New York State? Do you remember what happened to him? Jim, I'll bet you forgot. I'll bet you forgot what happened to the young Kennedy. What happened to him?
What do you mean what happened? He disappeared.
Well, what do you mean he disappeared? What happened?
Are you talking about the Kennedy cousin?
No. There was a young Kennedy who was supposed to take the seat that was carved out by Moynihan in New York. It was a guaranteed lock on a liberal Senate seat. It was the road to the presidency. He was the heir apparent. And what happened to him?
What happened?
Well, you don't know. Called a plane disappeared over Long Island Sound. Does anyone remember that? And into the breach there came a carpetbagger. and bought a house, became senator. Now, I'm not saying there's any connection. It was an accident, wasn't it? Well, things happen when power wants its way. We don't know what might happen when Trump is seen to be the power that will take over America. I don't think that all of these people who've been feasting on trillions of dollars are going to give it up so quickly on both sides of the aisle. It's that simple. Let's move on to other topics. 855-407-282. Petri on KSFO. Go ahead, please. Question or comment?
Yeah, Michael, thanks for taking the call. I'd like to pose the question of who is worse, Roman Polanski or Sean Penn, who both with their despicable history, and Sean Penn obviously right now doing what he's doing, but think about that. It's the sewer pipe of Hollywood that you've referenced so many times is so true. I mean, they're pumping out these movies like The Danish Girl and Carol and other sicko movies that are just forcing their ideas down our throat, but let's just Penn versus Polanski.
Well, okay, one was a sexual case of Polanski, what, with a 14-year-old girl? Is that case? I forgot already what he did. Wasn't it a young girl about 14? Is that the case of Polanski?
Yes, of course. I mean, he made okay movies, let's put that aside, but his behavior, yes, that's despicable, and so he hasn't been allowed back into America.
Okay, so what did Sean Penn, who's worse is what you're saying?
Yeah,
cavorting and glorifying a drug dealer who's caused the death of at least 10,000 people and flooded America with drugs. Who's worse? I mean, I think you could figure out who's worse. And, who's worse? You have to take the amount of damage that either of these individuals have done.
Yeah, well,
but look at Sean Penn's history. Every movie he's been in, he's either killing someone or chopping them up with an axe. And then he comes out and makes believe he's anti-gun. What more do you need to know? Penn's latest movie at the time I wrote Government Zero was called The Gunman. I couldn't make it up. He starred in a typical Hollywood shoot-them-up action film immediately after attacking the Second Amendment and calling guns, quote, cowardly killing machines. Meanwhile, I wrote, I haven't heard anything about Sean Penn disarming his bodyguards. Then you have Jeffrey Katzenberg and David Geffen living lives of luxury from their for-profit film and music ventures, but raising millions for leftist politicians who attack everyone else trying to make an honest living. Then you got Weinstein, the hypocrite, who says, I never owned a gun and doesn't want a gun. But he has a large cadre of armed bodyguards who provide him protection the average American can't afford. And Weinstein's movies, almost every one of them is about violence, isn't it? So, yeah, this is the hypocrisy, and maybe it'll come to an end. I don't really know. I'll be back in a minute. I know you appeal to African Americans far more so than the polls are saying. Can you tell the audience why you think you appeal to African Americans in particular?
Well, I agree with you 100%. The relationship is incredible. And, one of the polls came out and said I had 25%. That's as a Republican, which would normally have 5 or 6 or maximum 7. And I have 25%. The poll recently came out showing a 25% with African Americans. And one of the announcers said, well, wait a minute. If this is true, that means the election's over. Trump wins automatically. So, great.
I just want to ask from the interview earlier today. I asked the pointed question, is it not, are you? I said, why are you so popular with African Americans, Hispanics, immigrants? Now, here's a new poll came out from Gallup. The share of people identifying as Democrats has reached a record low. You don't know this, but the share of people in America who say I'm a Democrat has dropped to a record low in 2015, according to the latest liberal Gallup poll results. And that shows that Americans are abandoning Obama's idea of Democrat Party. That's a huge change. People don't even want to call themselves a Democrat because of what he's done to this country. It's the lowest overall share of self-identified Democrats since the polling institution began interviewing subjects via telephone instead of in person. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? That's a very big deal. Now, here's Hillary Clinton continuing the same old about Medicare, Medicaid, the environment, and women's issues. She is stuck in amber. Hillary Clinton fell into an amber pit somewhere around 30 years ago and keeps talking to us from a microphone down that amber pit about issues that are no longer on the front burner of most Americans, let alone most women. Most women want national security as their issue. They don't care about equal pay. This is an old story. It's a dead story. It's a nonsensical story. But listen to her go on and on and on, droning on in clip number 18.
Well, if he wants to engage in personal attacks from the past, that's his prerogative, so be it. I'm going to draw the distinctions between where I stand and where he stands when it comes to equal pay for women, raising the minimum wage, which affects two-thirds of the women who are the ones receiving the minimum wage.
Yeah, right. Okay. Right. Now let's listen to her in 19. Again, the same old from Mrs. Clinton.
Well, it's been fair game going back to the Republicans for some years. They can do it again if they want to. That can be their choice as to how to run in this campaign.
All right, it's all hot air. She's not talking about the classified emails that she ordered her top aide to bury. That's a big deal. She could go to jail for this. If it was you or I, you'd be in prison right now. So let's stop the double talk about women's pay, Hillary, and let's get down to it. Listen to the double talk now at 21 from Miss Democrat Hillary Clinton right now in the Savage Nation.
That's just not the way I treated classified information. Headings are not classification notices, and so oftentimes we're trying to get the best information we can, and obviously what I'm asking for is whatever can be transmitted, if it doesn't come through secure, to be transmitted on the unclassified system. So no, there's nothing to that, like so much else that has been talked about in the last year.
Sure, just laugh your way through it. Just laugh your way through something that you darn well know you did illegally. Now, the question is, will this FBI be able to conduct the investigation and come to the proper conclusion? Because on the Drudge Report, we see the headlines. They didn't make up the stories. He only links them. FBI Clinton probe expands to public corruption track. Pressure growing inside FBI to pursue. Many cases successfully prosecuted with much less evidence. Did you hear that, all you Democrats? All you Soviet citizens of the Hillary universe? Did you hear about that, all you citizens of the Hillary universe? Many, many people have gone to jail for much less. This is a huge deal, and we don't want a double standard in the United States of America. This is a huge deal. The Clinton Foundation is a huge deal. The Clinton Foundation is a public charity, which had grants and contributions in excess of $144 million in 2013. And inside the FBI, pressure is growing. We had a good show until right now. I had to be thrown off base at some point, or else it wouldn't be my show. I'd like to conclude by saying that there are FBI agents who are screaming if prosecution does not get pursued, they're going to go crazy. Why? Because many previous public corruption cases have been made and successfully prosecuted with much less evidence than what is emerging in the investigation of Hillary Clinton. That's it. Trump interview on michaelsavage.com. Be here or be nowhere. Thanks for listening. God bless America.
Savage.